I know, you're allowed, you're allowed. Okay.
Well, why don't you guys
Go ahead. And go ahead and get started because there's clearly a lot of interest. So, Catherine Abreu, why don't you start us off?
So I think what we have here is a menu of compromises rather than the solid energy transition package that parties and every corner of civil society have been calling for. So we've got, we don't have any clear language on phasing out fossil fuels, but rather we have language on, accelerating efforts to reduce the production and supply and demand for fossil fuels. In a just and equitable way, so it is good to see that language. Totally. So it is good to see the language on justice and equity entering into the fossil fuel phase out text, or the fossil fuel text, but there is no text on fossil fuel phase out. So what we're seeing instead is this kind of watered down menu of compromises. We also have strong language in here around needing to scale up abatement technology, as if abatement technology is on the same level of renewable technology and energy efficiency improvements. And we know that that is not the case. Abatement technology will play just a very limited role according to the science. I'm also noting that we have the reintroduction of the phrase inefficient fossil fuel subsidies. So we had options in the previous draft that excluded that phrase and really specified that if any subsidies were being provided to fossil fuels, they had to be for reducing energy poverty and addressing a just transition. And I guess we're just seeing these weasel words kind of being reinserted into the text.
Well, I mean, let me just be very brief. A few kind of key observations on this new text. Number one, this text you will realize is pretty long, but it's a clean text. So that suggests to us, I guess, from a procedural point of view, the presidency might present this as a take it or leave it text. Number two, I agree with Kat. The word phase out has been phased out from this text. You may recall in an earlier iteration, there were 5 options when it comes to fossil fuel phase out, and 4 of the 5 options had some sort of phase out, and that did not appear anywhere in this text. The third thing that I would say is, if you look at the fossil fuel transition, the energy transition package, the text has been framed in a very open-ended way, just calling on parties to embrace a few actions. So in that sense, this is a pretty broad and soft menu when what the world needs is decisive climate action. So there's clearly a big gap between the level of ambition in this text and the level of ambition that we need from a climate science point of view.
Does it read like it's been written by a CEO of an oil company?
Yeah. Why don't we take this as Shady Khalil, everybody from Greenpeace MENA.
So exactly, I'm seconding my colleagues. We came here expecting a text that's aligned with science. We don't see any mention of science when it comes to the energy package itself. We are not seeing any mention of phased out or phased down. It's something that we expected. We don't see a timeline, which is crucial. Even with the decline language that focused on emission, we don't see even a timeline when it comes to this. We don't see also the stress on renewables as tested solution. We see a promotion of false solution. We see carbon capturing, also dangerous solutions like nuclear. So we don't see the stress on renewables that we expected. We also don't see clear text on the differentiation and equity. So the text itself also is not abiding. It's a shopping list, like what my colleagues said. So, I mean, it's advisory to countries to adopt, but it's not committing countries. And this is not what we expected at all. We expected a bigger ambition. We came here considering this COP to be historical, this text to be historical, and we don't see the text reflecting this.
Is there any chance that phase out can be reintroduced? Is this fine?
If parties push hard for phase out to be reintroduced, absolutely, there is an opportunity for that to happen. And let's remember that last night at the Majlis, where parties were invited to have an open conversation with each other about what they wanted to see in the outcomes of COP28, there was an overwhelming consensus that the need to acknowledge phase out of fossil fuels would be a litmus test for countries in terms of the success of this COP. And so I think what we're seeing here is a desire to appease a small minority of countries who have been blocking that text. Now,
Can
of
you
course,
name that small minority?
well, we heard last night again at the Majlis, Saudi Arabia and Iraq speaking up specifically against including language on phasing out fossil fuels. I think we have also heard that strong language on a support package for the energy transition and the scaling up of renewable energy in developing countries would be critical to those countries coming on board with the energy transition package, and an acknowledgement of the need for differentiation. And as my colleagues were saying, we don't see that strong acknowledgement of the need for differentiation. And if we were to see that, then I think the consensus on the need for phase out would be even larger.
Could you does this show you your fears of an oil company executive being the CEO being an actual problem? Was this the problem here, or you didn't get the Nixon to China moment?
So I might recall that we have heard President of COP28, Sultan Al Jaber, several times say he wants this to be a historic COP. He considers, and I think many of us consider, the adoption of the Loss and Damage Fund on day one of this COP a historic achievement. But that loss and damage is deeply interconnected with the issue of fossil fuel phase out. On a press panel earlier today, I heard Tina Steege from the Republic of Marshall Islands say, if we move beyond 1.5 degrees, there's not enough money in the world to pay for the losses and damages that the Marshall Islands will experience. And more fossil fuels means pushing the world past 1.5 degrees of warming and more losses and damages. And so delivering that truly historic result, if Sultan Al Jaber wants that, will mean having to strengthen the text around fossil fuel phase out.
The US was
Hang on 1 second. Sorry, I'm sorry. You can go next. I just want to introduce, we also have Andreas Sieber here from 350. He can also answer your questions. Go ahead.
The US wasn't there last night. I mean, how much of this lack of ambition and the push for full solutions like carbon capture is, would you say has been down to the US and to the UK and to the other major sort of the major oil and gas producers of the world today?
Well, I would start by saying this text has been written by the presidency, right? So all these weaknesses that are in there, I think they are presenting to countries. So I think what we want to hear from all countries now is to really put their cards on the table, and they have the opportunity in plenary to reject this weak option and to say you need to go back and do your homework. And indeed what we have seen now is to some extent our fears come true, but we have still a chance to improve it, and countries need to go to plenary, point out all the weaknesses that we have in the text and go back to do their homework.
If I can re-stress, so alignment to science is essential. Having a timeline, so decline in fossil fuel this decade and phased out in 2050, the latest, need to be included in the text. This is the ambitions that we have, and also we don't want in the text any acknowledgement of false solution. We need to only promote renewable, tested solutions that does not give us delay that we can't afford, and people who are suffering in the global south from climate impacts can't afford. So we need to align with science. We need to align to this timeline at this COP.
Lisho, procedurally, what are the things that can happen now? You said it's a clean text.
Well, I think as Andreas has said, and also I agree with Kat, we actually need to phase in the word phase out now, right? I think there is still a chance for countries to do that. This level of ambition we've heard from many parts of the world is not acceptable to that. So I certainly want this.